Chapter 24. What do we do now? For a good 10 minutes, the barn buzzed with excitement, everyone talking about the escape and the trip, fidgeting and fretting and discussing and hoping. Then the hinges creaked and Dewey walked in. Burdock hadn't even been keeping watch at the door. This was a shock. "Time for your suppers and your milking, Mrs. Brown." Dewey seemed to have calmed down, but now he looked perplexed as he studied the horses and wagon at the back of the barn. "How'd you fellows get in here without me seeing? And look at you. I guess I need to unharness you two." Given everything, his exhausting animal chase, his anger, his intentions, it seemed odd that Dewey was here, even bothering to attend to the animals. But after countless years, this daily routine was so thoroughly ingrained in the farmer that as long as the animals remained, he simply couldn't not do it. Dewey unharnessed the horses, hastily filled everyone's feed troughs and water buckets, and milked Mrs. Brown. He went into the tool shed and gathered an armful of tools, and then he stood at the front of the barn and looked back. Tucked off to the other side, Burdock had a clear view of Dewey, and couldn't help but wonder, does he look a little scared? It was hard to know. Dewey turned off the light, closed the big doors, and slid the heavy brace into the slots. Outside it was starting, very lightly, to snow. There was a collective sigh inside the barn. "Oh, no," moaned Figgy. "What do we do now?" asked Tick. "Now what do we do?" echoed Fluff. The sheep felt forlorn. She wished she could fill herself with air and float up out the side window and into the sky, like a balloon. Mrs. Brown hung her head. She closed her eyes, and though it embarrassed her, she couldn't help herself. Large, silent tears seeped beneath her lashes and coursed down her soft cheeks. She turned her head away. Slowly, Burdock looked around, watching Mrs. Brown and Nanny, small Tick, the big horses, silly Fluff, and clever Figgy. Burdock tried to think of the right word to describe them. Maybe friends wasn't really quite the right one. After all, Burdock lived with these animals, slept and ate beside them, listened to their talk, and shared one roof every night, all year round. Maybe Noctura had been on to something. The barn animals might not be exactly like him, but he saw now they were his real family. Burdock stood up. "Listen," he said, trying to sound assured. 8 miles is a lot. I'll be the first to admit that, but we can do it. We will walk. I have the shortest legs of any of us. But if I can do it in this rotten cold, then you all can. Mrs. Brown, too." The 10-pound cat turned and leveled his good eye straight at the cow, who at over 900 pounds weighed nearly 100 times what he did. "Okay, Mrs. Brown?" Figgy laughed. "That's chutzpah, Burdock." "Okay. Let's. What the heck?" Her voice grew louder. "Really? What have we got to lose?" "A hill of beans," said Tug. "That's right," said Pull, brightening. "I agree. I'll lead the way, and Tug too. We weigh a ton, each, and we might have enormous feet, alarmingly large feet." His voice sounded almost buoyant. He lifted his feet and crunched audibly about in his straw for emphasis. "We'll trample down a path for the rest of you." "I'll bring up the rear," said Nanny. "Make sure everyone is accounted for." "Of course you will," said Figgy. "You know, you really do deserve a better name than Nanny. You're way beyond that." "Okay, everyone," said the goat. "Now, quickly, eat all your dinner and drink a lot of water. You're going to need it. Then we move."